Welcome. In this video of writing to the console, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to learn how to write, funnily enough, to this area here, which is called the console. And we're going to do that by learning a little bit about the anatomy of these program lines and what it is that makes them tick. What is it that hooks them up to the actors in Unity and makes them print to the console. So that's very exciting stuff. It's going to be your first program ever for some of you. So let's dive right in. So we saw this file briefly at the end of the last video. All I've done since is clean up by closing a few of these tabs around the edges to give us more space to look at this lovely file. And I'd like to draw your attention to a couple of bits. Well, first off, it is quite complicated, so we're not going to chew all of this at once. We're going to tackle it one bit at a time. And the bit I want to draw your attention to is where it says start. And this whole block here, from this curly brace to the end curly brace. This is where we're going to put our code to run once at the startup. So this tells the actor that when we start, we want to do the following. Very, very simple. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to print. So what I'm going to do is create a print command in here between these two curly braces. A print command looks just like this. It's a print. Then the question is, what do I print? So we have to tell it what to print, and that goes between curly brackets like this. Not curly brackets, sorry, round brackets like this. And then what we want to print is some text. And in Unity speak, in fact, in programming speak full stop, text is known as a string. So I'm going to be calling it a string from now on, but you may want to think of it as text. And text has to go between these two double quotes. So what we can say is hello world, and I'm going to put an exclamation mark at the end of that. And as you see, it's very important that the brackets and the quotes are correct, because like I said, this actor is very stupid, and if you do anything like getting these orders wrong, like this, he won't be able to understand you. So we need to make sure that the quotes are inside the brackets. And then one more thing, you'll notice that the IDE is already pointing out a little error for us with this red squiggly line. It's like spelling correction, but for your code, for the stupid actor. It's telling us what the stupid actor won't be able to understand. And in this case, it's saying it expected a semicolon. So why does it need a semicolon? Well, that's because the actor needs to know when he's finished doing this particular instruction and when he should move on to do the next one. So let's run through the anatomy one more time. We have a command to the actor, which is print. We then have brackets which tell us that we're about to give some information about what to print. Then we have a quote, which tells us that the thing we're about to print is a string, also known as text. And then inside we have the text. Then we say we've finished with the string, and then we say we've finished with the things that we want to print. And then we say we're finished with this whole command, this whole action. So that is how the actor is going to go about reading and executing this action. And the whole thing is within this start curly brackets, which means, whoops, I'll undo that. The whole thing is within the start curly brackets, which means that it is done when the game starts. So I'm going to save this file. And then how do we get it to run? Well, we need an actor to run our script. So let me talk a little bit about that. So we've got scripts. And in Unity speak, these are known as components. I'll get you used to that terminology early on because we'll be using it throughout the course. And then we have our stupid actor, which in Unity speak is known as a game object. And it's obviously a game object because it is an object in a game, and the components are parts of its behavior. In fact, I say parts because you could have multiple scripts or multiple components, each of which is a different part of that particular actor's behavior. And we'll see that in later sections, but in this section we won't need it just yet. So what do we understand from that? Well, we need our scripts to be attached to an actor or game object. So our script, which is a component, needs to be attached to a game object. Now the game objects all live in the hierarchy or in the scene. So we need to right-click in the hierarchy to create a new game object and go down to create empty. Now I can rename this game object by going over to the inspector and changing where it says this default name of game object, I'm going to change this to console printer and geo for game object for short. Now remember, you have to hit enter in order to rename this. I always fall for that one. And then we need to attach a script. How do we do that? Well, quite simple. We can either drag onto the object in the hierarchy, or we drag onto the object in the inspector. Either one will do the same thing. It will just list the script or component in our inspector. So there we go. We know that the console printer script has now been attached to our console printer game object. So we can save our scene by control saving and hit play. Now you'll notice if we go over to the console that we've got a hello world printed. Excellent. Now, just to show you that this script indeed needed to be attached to the game object, we can remove it again. So we click on the cog, hit remove component, and then hit play. Go over to the console and notice nothing is being printed. So, congratulations, we have printed our first line out of a script. Now, what I want to show you is a very common error that people often make. When you right-click and create a C# script, it will create a new behavior with this default name. Now, if you don't rename at this point, so you click away, for example, and then you come back to rename, what will happen is something very interesting. I'm going to rename this to test script. And if I wanted to attach this to our console printer game object or our console printer actor, I can do that by dragging. But you'll notice that Unity gives us an error, and the error actually gives us a clue as to what's going on. Have a little think. What do you think could it be? Okay, you may not have got it, but I will tell you. It is actually, I'm going to ignore that. It is actually that this class has to be the same as this CS script. Oops, opening Chrome by accident. Let's open that test script. So you'll notice that testscript.cs is not the same as new behavior script. You'll notice that this comes after class. That's how you know what I'm talking about. So what we need to do is also rename this to match. We can save that file, go over to Unity, drag it onto the console printer GO, and click on the GO object, and we'll see that, there you go, indeed that component has been added on to the game object. So let's remove it, because we don't want that. We can delete it with right-click delete, and move our console. Oops, don't want to move the whole tab. I want to move this console script onto the game console printer GO and play again to check that everything's still as it should be. Yep, my console is still printing hello world. So that's a little primer on game objects and components and how they relate to each other. And in actual fact, they're just fancy words for actors and scripts. So you can think of it in that way too. We also have just looked at how we can look at the console printer to print this hello world. So that is all fabulous. Now it's time for a challenge. I'd like you to write a game intro to our Go Home game. I'd like you to print your own print statement. And can you write multiple lines? How would you give multiple instructions to your actor? And then share a screenshot, both of the code and of this little bit, the console, in the discussions. Okay, so pause the video and test out your knowledge. Okay, welcome back. So you have presumably had a go at this. Now, you may have guessed it, but the way of printing two lines is simply like so. But this is not very neat. We often in programming have lots of conventions which aren't strictly necessary, such as you notice that when I added the semicolon, this print line also automatically had these tabs inserted before it. But it would equally well just work if all of these white spaces were removed and it just looked like this. But it's really ugly and really hard for humans to read. Not the actors, not the stupid actors. They just go and read character by character. But us humans, we would struggle with this. So what we often do is we make sure that each command, each statement, is written on its own line, like so. And I don't forget my semicolon on the end of the line, and go over to Unity, and let's hit play. There we go. We've got Hello World and Hello 2. Brilliant. So how do we introduce people to the game? Well, let's say, welcome to Go Home. And then in the second line, we can say a game where you need to find your way back. Like so. Let's just test that out. We'll get used to this cycle of writing code and going back into Unity and hitting play and watching our changes. Here we go. Welcome to Go Home, a game where you need to find your way back. So how do we take a screenshot of this? We take our snipping tool on Windows. On Mac, it's slightly different. We can create a new snip and then just select the bit of the screen that's relevant, like so. And then you can save this file to your desktop or wherever and follow the discussions link for this lecture and either create a new topic or just add in to the sharing post that is already there where lots of people have been sharing their first experiences of writing to the console, and go and congratulate other students, get involved and really share in the joy of your achievements. Congratulations, pat yourselves on the back. When you are happy with this, continue on to the next video. See you there.